Let's talk about how to round decimals. So the first question you might have is, why do I need to learn how to round decimals? And it's primarily because calculators will give you some really long answers with many decimals, and we need to know how to communicate those kind of answers in a meaningful way. So here's an example where we've divided 378 by 19, and we get an answer with many decimals. So let's say we want to communicate this a little bit easier without using all of those decimals. We can choose by rounding it to 0 places or the nearest whole number, or 1 place or 2 places, or even 3 places to the right of the decimal. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Answers to this particular problem could take the form of any of these 4 numbers with the rounding above. If we round it to the nearest whole number, we would get 20. To 1 decimal, or the 10th place, we would get 19.9. 2 decimals, or the 100th place, like money, 19.89. Or 3 decimals, the 1000th place, 19.895. We'll talk about how to do that now. In order to round effectively, we need to be aware and know how to find the decimal places. So here we have a number, 19.894738684. The whole number part is in green. That's the number 19. Then we have the decimal point. And we have that first number to the right of the decimal point. We call that the 10th place. So if you're rounding to the 10th place, there should be only 1 number after your decimal point. If you're rounding to the 100th place, there will be 2 numbers after your decimal. And the 1000th place, there will be 3. Now, we could continue this, but I don't think that that's practical. These are the 3 that are most common. Actually, I should say 4, because we might round to the 10th, 100th, or 1000th, or even the whole number. Those are the ones you're more likely to see. Now, let's talk about the rounding rules, and we'll do that in 2 steps. Here is a number. Step 1 is we need to identify the place that we are rounding to. In this case, it's the 10th place, the first number to the right of the decimal. So we locate that number. This is the number we are thinking about rounding. And then we look at the next number to the right. These are really the only numbers that we're going to use in our rounding. We can ignore all of those other numbers. So that's the first step, is to think about that number this way. We're ignoring everything to the right. We're considering that first number to the right of the number we're rounding to. So let's look at step 2. Here's where we were in step 1. If the number to the right is 5 or more, as it is in this case, it's number 9, that's more than 5, we're going to increase the digit that in the place we're rounding to. So this is an 8. We're going to increase that to a 9. We're going to round it up. So our answer to this would be 19.9, rounded to the 10th place. And you can see we only have 1 number to the right of that decimal. Let's take a look at a slightly different number. In this case, we have 19.84, a little bit different. We look to that number to the right that's in the blue rectangle. And if that number is 4 or less, we are going to leave the 8 alone. So our answer just becomes 19.8. So the nice thing about rounding is there's kind of only 2 possibilities after you identify the place. You're either going to round it up or you're going to leave it alone. So if that doesn't work for you, I'd like to talk about one other way that is kind of an effective way of remembering this. It's a little phrase that might be get in your head a little bit, which is kind of a good thing because then you remember it. Who's that knocking on the door? 5 or more, raise the score. Let's see how we can apply that little statement. Round these examples to the nearest tenth. Here we have one of those numbers again. What this means is let's put up a door just to the right of the number that we're rounding to. So here's our tenths place. Let's put up a door just to the right of it. And then look at who's knocking on that door just to the right. If it's 5 or more, raise the score. The implication there is that if it's not 5 or more, we're just going to leave it alone. So this is not 5 or more. So our answer becomes 19.8. Look at another example, 19.89, etc. Let's put up our door again. In this case, it's going to go just to the right of the 8, between the 8 and the 9. And we're doing it there because the 8 is in the tenths place. That's where we're rounding to. 9 is now knocking on the door. 9 is 5 or more. So raise the score means increase this number by 1. And we get 19.9. So feel free to pause the video, rewind a little bit, watch that again if you'd like to review those steps. I'm going to get on with a couple of examples here. You paid $5 for a bag of apples that weighs 2.64 pounds. What was the price per pound to the nearest hundredth? This is an example where you might do some math that's going to force you to need to round. So we're going to divide the price by the number of pounds. That's how we find price per pound or dollars per pound. When we do that, I get 1.893939 in the calculator. So this isn't normally the way we would communicate a price per pound. So it's a perfect example of the need to round. So where is our hundredth place? It is that second number to the right of the decimal. It's right there. If I'm going to use the door approach here, I'm going to put up a door just to the right, or I'm going to visualize a door. I look at the next number. If it's 5 or more, I'm going to round up. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it alone. It is not 5 or more. So this answer becomes $1.89. Let's take a look at another problem. You drove 402.5 miles in 6.7 hours. What was your average speed rounded to the nearest tenth? So the way we get miles per hour is we divide miles, 402.5, by hours, 6.7. And when we do that, we get 60.07462,687. That's way too many decimals. We want to round that to the nearest tenth. Always pay attention to your rounding directions. And here is our 10th place right here. So let me put up a door. I'm going to change my color here and put up a door right there. And we look at the number to the right, and yes, it's 5 or more. So we are going to round that 0 up, and it's going to become a 1. The answer to this problem then would be 60.1. And because we found miles per hour, we put those units, and there's our answer. Well, I hope that was helpful in refreshing your memory about how to round decimals. Now it's time for some practice on your own.